And just like that, I'm back. Still listening to tapes. Listening to the Orga tape I talked about last update. Came out on Caligari. Raw, punkish black metal stuff. Give you the condensed description. Very good. Ongoing sale right now up until midnight. Swing by there. Get yourself some stuff. Get yourself some physical media. Get physical with some media. So, at the same flea market that I was just talking about, there was a guy selling Nintendo cartridges for $5 a pop. Now, I'm not the most knowledgeable guy about this stuff. I'm not a huge gamer, retro or otherwise, but I do like to attempt to play Nintendo games while I'm down here listening to records. Just something to do while you spin vinyl. I have precious little time to do such an activity, you know, maybe once a week, so I don't get too serious about this shit. But I have noticed one thing when I've gone out and hunted for new cartridges every once in a blue moon, is that some stuff that you get in the wild is significantly cheaper than what it goes for on eBay. And that's less of a thing, much less of a thing these days than records. You can pretty much, you go to any record store, I feel like, and there's you're not going to be paying too much less than getting something on Discogs or eBay, at least not around here. So it's nice. I mean, I thought that this one was maybe worth a lot because it was really popular when I was a kid, and it's not. it was $5, and it goes for about $5 on eBay. So what the fuck do I know? But I got a couple of games that I really like, and a few ones that are kind of like rolled the dice and rolled a one kind of deal. But I'm going to talk about them because Nintendo's fun. I like talking about it. I got Startropics. This is my favorite of the bunch. I played this before on emulators, and it didn't really grab me. I know Aaron the Metal Theologian was a big fan of this for a while. I was playing this quite a bit. I can understand why. He's a man of impeccable taste, and this game rules. It's very hard, though. It's very frustrating. Gameplay-wise, it plays a lot like The Legend of Zelda, the first one. But unlike Zelda, you can jump, and a lot of it's platform jumping, but from that overhead perspective. And there's no jumping diagonally or attacking diagonally. It's only left, right, up, down. So it's really hard. And the control interface is kind of like, almost like deliberately shitty. It feels deliberate. I'm sure it's probably not. But that's part of the fun, is the frustration with it. I've done okay. I mean, I've only had the game for a week, and I've gotten to the second boss, which is the little amount of time that I've been playing this for is pretty good for me. But in between all the underground mazes, which are very Legend of Zelda, it's almost kind of like a Final Fantasy or Dragon Warrior kind of thing, where you're going around and talking to people and trying to get clues on where to go. And the whole setting of it, the whole world of it is very interesting too. It's like sci-fi kind of deal. You've got a submarine that you're going around in, and it's kind of futuristic and kind of tropical. Obviously, Startropics. It's very island centric, I guess. You're a little kid with a yo-yo, which is sort of Goonies in a weird way. So yeah, it's a fun game. Very, very similar to Zelda in those underground lairs where you're going around and trying to hit people with your yo-yo. The snakes and the bats act exactly the same. They're pretty much the same bad guys from the Zelda game. The snakes that attack you when you're in their line of sight and dart at you, and the bats that kind of swarm around and then get tired and slow down. Very similar in that regard, but it's not a blatant ripoff because it was made by Nintendo, so it's the same dudes making it. Then you got this top secret Golgo 13 game. I loved this game when I was a kid. I didn't own it myself. One of my neighbors had it, and I played it a lot. It's got a lot of cutscenes, a lot of little vignettes. You're a secret agent going around taking on the KGB. And it was a little bit ahead of its time and a little too greedy for what technology had to offer with 8-bit at the time, but it was very ambitious. There's almost every single style of gameplay and game in this, outside of maybe puzzles, it seems like. You know, it starts out like a beat-em-up kind of side-scroll sort of deal where you're going around and you have agents trying to shoot you and snipe at you. There's a really weird system with life and bullets. Like, you gain life and bullets by killing people, and that's about it. That's the only way you can keep from dying. So once you kill a guy, your life and your bullets go up, which is kind of odd. Then there's like a shoot 'em up, side-scrolling, flying kind of deal where you're in a helicopter, Then there's like an underwater one where it's almost like that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game thing, but not nearly as frustrating, where you're swimming around obstacles. There's a sniper deal where you have to kind of look into a window and snipe somebody. The stage that I got to after the underwater one and couldn't get past was like a first-person maze, and I really don't do well with those with 8-bit stuff. It's really hard for me to gauge like where the hell I am, where it essentially just looks like a bunch of lines, you know, unless I'm sitting down with a pad of graph paper, which I'm not gonna fucking do. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have had the time and I would have fucking totally nerded out and done that, but don't really know. But I'm gonna keep playing this. It is fun. It's very entertaining. The storyline's like actually pretty engaging too, which is rad. Speaking of first-person stuff being confusing and an eyesore and not very fun to play, let's talk about Dungeon Magic. This is Sword of the Elements. I mean, I'll probably try to give this another shot. If I get really bored, maybe I'll try to pull up a walkthrough and see if it can explain to me what I'm doing. But this is a purely first-person 8-bit RPG where you're walking around talking to people. I didn't even pay attention to the plot. I presume it's trying to save some kind of princess or some shit. But just the perspective of everything coming at you and knowing where you are does not make any sense to me. You know, I'm very impatient with stuff like this. Like, my time is precious. So after playing it for like 10-15 minutes, I put it away. I wasn't feeling it. I don't consider myself a big-time connoisseur or like a total expert on it, but I know my 8-bit turn-based RPGs. I know all the really good ones, I feel like, at this point, and I'd never heard of this. And I figured that was for a good reason. I was right, but hey, $5. What are you gonna do? Then we got Karnov. I remember this being a pretty big deal back in the day, back in the 80s when it came out. Like, a lot of people liking it. I never owned it. Karnov was a boss from Bad Dudes, the arcade game. I'm not sure if he had his own game first or not. I think it came after. This is like a spin-off. But you're like a Cossack. Russian Cossack guy who spits fire, essentially, and it's kind of got some sticky gameplay. It's a side scroller. The power-ups kind of feel like they don't make a lot of sense. Again, you know, after playing, I gave the playthrough of all of them in a row, and I just wanted to go back to playing Startropics. So I'll try this again. Not the best side scroller I've ever played. I might end up liking it more if I give it more of a shot. And then we have, like, probably the coolest looking game out of all the ones I bought, this game Solstice. Again, I was like, is this an RPG? It's fantasy-based. Great label art there. But it's from the same point of view as, like, Qbert, where to move down you have to push right. You know, it's very perspective-based and 3D. You know, the whole board is kind of on a tilt, so the guy's coming at you. And there's a lot of almost like Marble Madness or Qbert or something like that, but you're a wizard that's going to save somebody, and it seems also very puzzle-based, moving stuff around, but the controls are very difficult. So, like I said, I'm like, I think I want to go back to Golgo 13, but as far as the graphics, really fucking neat. So that's what I got. Those are my Nintendo tapes, as uninformed adults called them back in the day. I will put links for this stuff if you want to. I'm sure there's walkthroughs and gameplay stuff on there if you're curious about it. I'm not trying to like really gain any viewers with like any kind of video game content on here, but I feel like I shouldn't talk about music all the time, or I don't feel like talking about music all the time. And I'm kind of excited about getting these right now, so I figured I'd throw it in there for little bonus content if you're curious about such things. That's about it. I'm going to go back to talking about records next.